Police officers of Reddit. What was your oh shit moment? Story 1. Got a call for an emotionally disturbed person. Arrive on scene and a 350-pound man built like an NFL lineman is passed out on the floor face down. His wife says he suffers from PTSD from the first Iraq War and that he was an Army Ranger. He had been drinking heavily. His son is on scene and about 16 years old. The man begins to wake up and proceeds to smash his forehead into the ground repeatedly. We call for an ambulance. A small pool of blood begins to form on the floor. The wife grabs a rag and goes to wipe it up, when this guy's head jerks up real quick, his face contorted in rage. He grabs the wife by the neck and throws her clear across the room onto the couch. We immediately jump on him, but he is preternaturally strong. There are 4 of us, and we are each fighting one limb. The kid jumps in and helps us get 2 sets of cuffs on him because one set was not wide enough to connect his wrists behind his back. I ride in the ambulance to the hospital with him while he glares at me angrily, reciting his military registration number and telling me I won't get any information out of him and that I'm a towelhead. I don't remotely look like I'm from the region. The entire ride I hope that he doesn't break out of the cuffs. If I'm being honest, I'm not sure we would have gained control of him if the kid hadn't helped. Reply 1. This story feels like it's really sad for everyone involved, on top of being hectic and dangerous obs. Do you know what happened to the guy? Reply 2. I can't imagine how it would feel to see so many men struggle to sedate my own father and ultimately be the one to put the handcuffs on. I hope his family is taking care of themselves. Story 2. Kid drowned at a local pool, so I had to tag along with the ambulances for an investigation. I got there first and saw his father holding him crying, and my heart sank. I ran over there and tried to perform CPR to the best of my ability for about 10 minutes before the ambulance arrived. He woke up right as it pulled onto our street. I proceeded to visit him in the hospital, and now he swears he wants to be a police officer. Story 3. I pulled up on a teen sleeping in a vehicle at the end of a country road. When I ran the license plate, I found out that he was reported as a runaway. The doors on the vehicle were locked, so I knocked on the window to wake him up. Once he woke up and realized what was going on, he shot himself in the mouth with a rifle he had hidden under his blanket. Rough way to start my shift. Reply 1. Dang, I can only imagine how bad his home situation must have been for him to sooner die than be sent back. Reply 2. My brother unalived himself, and the cop who was called to scene has reached out to us many times over the years. He cut him down and tried to save him. My mom once made the remark, imagine if we had had to cut him down. Thank you for handling society at its worst. We love and appreciate you. Story 4. Just checked onto my shift. As I turned my patrol car on, my radio was in mid-broadcast about an accident just outside the city I work in. I voluntarily checked en route to help out the best I could. While heading there, I was informed that it was actually closer to the next city over, but that I would still be the first one there. I was then told it was a head-on collision. I arrived on scene about a minute later. It was in fact a head-on collision. 5 people from one vehicle were not wearing seatbelts. All 5 were fatally injured beyond any measure. There was nothing I could do. A doctor showed up on scene shortly after me. Nothing he could do. I watched 2 adults and 3 children die in front of my eyes. The 6-year-old little girl just stared at me, unblinking as she passed. I still get emotional. They were students at our elementary school. I knew them because I routinely go to that school just to see the little kids and give them junior police stickers, take pictures with them, and let them play with my gadgets and police car. I went to the memorial service that the school put on for the girls to pay my respects. Their father was there and didn't know who I was or that I was the first one there or what I saw. He was talking to another father, clearly in between denial and anger phases, about how he wished he knew what officer it was on scene so he could kill him for not doing anything, and why didn't he do anything, and blaming me for their deaths. That was really hard to hear. I wish I was a superhero and could have used magic powers to save those poor children. I'm sorry, little ones. You deserved to live your lives. Reply. I don't understand why we still hear these stories with the frequency we do about young children getting killed because they aren't wearing seatbelts. There was just that crash in Maryland that killed 5 children, and none were wearing them. What grown adult in 2019 loads up a car full of children and doesn't strap them in? It's ducking stupid. Story 5. Not me, but my friend is a cop. He pulled up to accident scene once involving a motorcycle. Gets out of his car, starts walking over, and sees the guy's helmet. Figures he'll be nice and bring it over to the guy. Well, as it turns out, the guy was still in the helmet. Story 6. Ex-cop from NSW Australian here. A guy once died in a motorcycle accident. We went to deliver the death message to his girlfriend. After reading the collision report, the truck driver said he just pulled straight in front of him like a deliberate unalivement. She was not answering, so we forced entry. The shelves of the fridge were on the kitchen floor. Opening the fridge, we discovered multiple pillowcases with her cut-up body inside. That was certainly an oh shit moment. Story 7. Not a cop here. This is more a story of how I unintentionally gave a cop an oh shit moment. I had a night job managing a liquor store in a very bad neighborhood. It was a one-room affair with me behind a desk with the cash register just inside the store's entrance. I'd only had the job for about a month when a friend dropped by to shoot the shit. After a bit, he asked me if the store owners had provided me with any kind of protection given what a nasty neighborhood it was. I told him, just this old double-barreled shotgun that's kept under the counter here, but it's empty. With that, I reached down and picked up the shotgun to show him. Unbeknownst to me, 2 armed robberies had just gone down on a fast food restaurant and another business close by within a couple of blocks, and the police were responding to the calls in full force. I heard the sirens, but didn't think much of it because sirens were pretty common in that part of town. A police car swerved into the parking lot in front of the store, and the officer jumped out of his car and dashed in to check if the robbers weren't hitting my store too. The cop burst through the front door of the store seconds after I'd picked up the shotgun to show my friend. Him coming through the door as fast as he did startled me, and without thinking, I turned toward him with the shotgun in my hands, and it was inadvertently pointed at him. His gun was holstered, and I had the drop on him. At that moment, he didn't know if I was the perp who just robbed the other stores or what. His face went paper white. Both of our minds were blown at the exact same time. I quickly laid the gun down and let him know there was no harm intended. But I'm pretty sure he's never forgotten that particular oh shit moment, and neither have I. Story 8. Back when I was an MP, I was assigned to write up abandoned vehicles on an area on post, and found a nasty one with busted out windows, no plates, and while checking it out, noticed a couple wires running from the front to the back. Lifted something in the back and... Reply 1. I read this thinking IED, IED, IED. Military C IED training will do that to you. Reply 2. It's pretty textbook. The telltale sign would be a sagging rear, too. Those rounds are not light. He's lucky the trigger wasn't the trunk opening. Edit. Just saw it was for training. You failed if it was. Haha. Just so if someone sees a car that's beat to shit on the side of the road, get 100 feet away, call the proper authorities. You will know it's an IED because of possible wires in the windows and no internal panels. The radio could be removed, too. Windows can still be in it to be used as extra shrapnel. If it's on blocks, it's so that it can't be pushed out of the way, and they put contact pads between the blocks as a trigger if depressed. Boom. Don't think you can cut wires. It doesn't work like that. If it has a large antenna on the rear coming out of the trunk, that's another sign. The trunk slot can also be missing and replaced with a trigger. Hopefully we don't ever have IEDs stateside, but you can never be too careful. These IEDs can be triggered from miles away, and they are watching remotely or with scouts to make sure maximum damage. However, most IEDs in car form are a set and forget thing. Most terrorists don't want to be around when the anti-terrorism team comes in. The military has the proper tools for trigger detection and devices that help defuse situations like this. Do not be a hero. You will probably set something off. Terrorists are stupid, but smart. Story 9. Was on a traffic stop. My sergeant came and backed me up due to having to possibly tow the vehicle. My sergeant's vehicle was behind mine, and we were both in the right lane. My sergeant was sitting in his car, and I exited my car to go talk to him. As I walked closer to his car, I heard a vehicle's engine rev all the way out, but I couldn't see it. For a split second, I knew what was going to happen, and though, oh shit, but couldn't react fast enough. The vehicle I heard smashed into the back of my sergeant's SUV, which struck me, throwing me into the road. The driver was completely hammered and didn't have a license. This happened last Sunday, and I have surgery in a couple of weeks for my knee, and my sergeant has a broken back. Story 10. My older brother is a cop. He got a call about a teenager that wanted to unalive himself behind a school with a knife. He rolled up to the spot, and when the kid noticed him, he immediately started hacking at his own neck with the knife. My brother sprints over to him and tases him. Saved the kid's life. It's all on body cam. Shit is ducking wild. Edit. A few people have asked for a link of the video. I've only seen it one time. It's not public as far as I know. This was a teenager that wanted to unalive himself, so I'm sure there was a good reason to not make it public. It probably would not have helped him cope with whatever was going on in his life. Reply 1. Shit, that makes me think of one of my mom's coworkers who is a tree trimmer. He was out with some other guys in his crew when they stopped for lunch. He walks away to take a smoke, then the other guys hear a chainsaw, then him screaming. He tried to unalive himself by cutting at his neck with it. Edit. He survived, but had to be fired due to safety reasons. Don't know the full details, but I'm pretty sure he was sent to a mental health facility at least for a little bit. Reply 2. Jesus, that sounds like an excruciating way to go with all those tools at your disposal. You'd think you'd pick one that acts more like a knife. Dark, I know, sorry, but a chainsaw sounds like the most painful possible pick. Story 11. Not me, but my grandpa was on the California Highway Patrol for 20 years. He always told the story of how he pulled over this guy for a busted taillight. My grandpa asked him for his license and registration, and the guy says, "How'd you catch me so fast?" Grandpa said the hair on the back of his neck never again stood up half so fast. Turned out the guy had robbed a bank not 5 minutes before. Story 12. This happened August of last year, was about 1-2 in the morning when a 911 hang-up call came in where all that was heard was screaming and swearing. I was the closest unit, riding alone, as my partner had been voluntold for another assignment that set of days. So when I got out into the area, I was initially waiting for backup. However, as I was walking up to the house, I heard several voices screaming. Rushing up to the house, the first thing I noticed was blood everywhere. The floor, the walls, the door, all covered to shoulder height. A distraught woman screamed and pointed me towards the living room. Once I get into the living room, I see a male and female on a couch, both covered in blood. The male had a massive laceration on his right forearm, and the female had taken a belt and snake-wrapped it around his arm to try and stop the bleeding. Seeing how the belt was applied, I knew it wasn't doing anything to stop the blood flow, so I pulled out my tourniquet, and as I prepped it, said to the guy, "This is gonna hurt like hell, but it'll stop the bleeding." I applied the tourniquet just above the top of his bicep, and knew it was on properly when he told me his hand had started to go numb. It was at that point I noticed a second deep gash on his tricep that went down to the bone. It took EMS about 15 minutes to get to the house, and the paramedic made it abundantly clear that had I not applied the tourniquet, the male would have bled out long before they were able to get there. In the end, turns out the guy had come home drunk and forgot his keys, climbed up to a second-story window, and punched his way into the house with near-deadly results. Reply: I'd be freaking the duck out if I saw that much blood. Original poster. Yeah, I wanted to become a cop for the longest time until I started hearing stories like this, and needles and junkies and just straight up people in very uncertain situations. I don't think I have the right personality type for that kind of job. Story 13. My grandfather retired from the police force a few years ago. One of his stories really stuck out to me. He answered a call, for backup, that there was a guy up in a tower shooting at shit with his rifle. When my grandpa arrived, the man shot at his squad car. The bullet entered the roof and hit just above his shoulder, right through the shoulder strap on his uniform. Story 14. Witness to autopsies. Watching the me pull the testicles out from the inside. Or the needle in the eyeball to get samples of eyeball fluid. Or the sights, sounds, and smells of the bone saw cutting through the skull, and the following suction sounds of the top of the skull being pulled off. Or check welfare call. Call to check on a 50-year-old lady who hadn't been seen for a few days. Got to the apartment, looked through a couple windows after no response at the door. Last window I checked, had to try and get my bearings while looking through half-open blinds. Realized she was there dead in bed, eyes open. I have seen plenty of dead bodies prior to this call, but that one gave me the heebie-jeebies. Or another dead body call. Died in his sleep. I had been in the bedroom for a couple of hours making notifications and requests for remains removal. A belt slid off the treadmill and hit the treadmill pretty loudly. There was no reason for that belt to fall off that treadmill. Cops get PTSD too. Edit. Shit, I have so many. Patting down a male arrestee for a female officer. Dude was passed out at a green light. He was already cuffed. Right as I got down to his right ankle, I heard it. It sounded like a garbage disposal choking on pudding. Dude shit himself right there. I didn't say anything as he sat down in the back seat. The female officer went to the opposite side of the back seat to assist in buckling him in and gagged. "Oh God, what's that smell?" she said. "Me. He just shit himself. LOL." I was in a community policing unit. Right as me and about 25 other community policing officers got out of a meeting, a report of a homicide came out just blocks from our station. Dispatch advised we were looking for a red truck. A fellow officer called out he had a red truck nearby. I was first there as he was pulling the driver out at gunpoint. As we approached him and got him cuffed, I turned and saw the biggest traffic jam of cop cars I had ever seen. Later that day, I watched a traffic cam recording of the traffic stop. I lost count at 53 cop cars coming to back us up. More of a holy shit than an oh shit. Story 15. Former MP here. Partner and I were riding around when we saw another unit dip into a weapons storage area. Figured, let's see what they're up to. Rolled up to the gate and the guard says, "You guys here for the bomb leak?" I'm sorry, what? We are now. Hit the gas and went rolling in to find the fire department and all there investigating. Had to evacuate the entire weapons area, most of the supply area across the street, as well as most of the flight line. Something like a 3,000 meter cordon. That was a fun day. Ended up just being sealant for anyone interested in the outcome. Story 16. I was a rookie cop in a small town. I was driving to a check on a report of a large group of kids causing a disturbance at a school parking lot late at night. I realized I had not tested my PA speaker, which I planned on using to disperse the crowd. On my way to the call, slowly rolling down a residential street at 2 a.m. with my windows down, I decided to tap my PA mic a couple times to check it. First 2 taps can't tell if it's working. I slow down. I tap the mic several more times. Definitely heard the loudspeakers that time. At that moment, I hear, "What the duck are you doing?" I look out my passenger window and see this old dude sitting on his porch in his underwear, looking pissed. Our eyes locked. I realized I had no decent excuse for clicking my loudspeaker in a quiet neighborhood in the middle of the night, so I didn't say anything back to him, and I floored it up the road. Definitely an oh shit moment at the time. Maybe different than what OP is looking for, but I get tired of traditional war stories. The awkward on this encounter was through the roof. Reply 1. That's funny. I had a couple of buddies that forgot to turn off the light bar after a traffic stop. Didn't help that it was during the day. Reply 2. Worked as a dispatcher for a while in college. One late night, we had a deputy radio that he was initiating a traffic stop. About 30 seconds later, "Dispatch, I guess we're in pursuit. He hasn't changed speeds, but he's not stopping." So I start sending units running to his location to help. Pretty standard stuff, while he's calling out location updates. This guy never changes his speed. About 5 minutes into the pursuit, I hear, "Dispatch, disregard. I forgot to turn on my lights. I'm back 10-8, no stop." Story 17. Okay, I've had a few oh shit moments. I'm referred to as a shit magnet on my shift. I was working a late Super Bowl night for overtime one night. I remembered seeing a vehicle sitting in a car wash stall as I was on the way to a call. I drive back the other direction an hour later and see the same car still sitting there unwashed. There doesn't look like anyone is preparing to clean it either. It's an area of high drug activity. I pull into the parking lot and move to sneak up on the car to see what might be going on. I see a male in the back seat and he sees me. He immediately begins to reach down near the seat and I'm hoping he isn't grabbing for a weapon. I draw my gun and tell him to show me his hands as I'm moving to get a better line of sight. He finally brings his hands up empty. I tell him to get out of the vehicle for me. He says he needs to pull up his pants first. I'm sorry, what? He wasn't grabbing for a gun. He was trying to get the pocket P word he was using off his duck and get his pants up while I'm pointing a gun at him. I holster up and tell him to do the same. He gets out and I can see a fairly large quantity of meth for a single person sitting in the seat next to his pocket P word and anal vibrator that I hadn't noticed before. I ask him if there's anything else in the car. He says there's some heroin too and a couple dildos. He then begins begging me to throw his sex toys away before his wife gets there to pick up the car. Apparently, he had told her he was going to wash the car midway through the big game. He left her and their guests at his house so he could have his own special halftime show. Story 18. Was a police intern, maybe about my second month in. I got to ride around and help with traffic stops and basically just help the officer on duty. Fairly small town, nothing ever really happened there. Mostly just drunks and domestic calls. One afternoon, I was with a cop new to the force, fresh from working in the prison. Great guy. Anyhow, we are running a speed check on the outskirts of town and find a guy on a motorcycle speeding with no helmet. Illegal at the time. Hit the lights, pull over with no incident. We get out, guy doesn't even turn around. Barely answers the questions through his teeth. Back to the cruiser and run his license. Comes back with several out-of-state warrants with Ebola attached due to an armed assault against a police officer. We both looked at each other and back at the dude on the motorcycle. Officer immediately unlatches the shotgun from the center console and hands it to me. "If you know how to use this thing, use it," was all he said. Oh shit. Without notice, other officers from surrounding towns are already lining up behind us, thank God. Dude was thankfully tired of being on the run and was ready to turn himself in. He went in without incident. Story 19. My mate had an oh shit moment on his first week of solo traffic patrols. Pulled a drunk guy over and the trunk literally had 2 people just chilling in it asleep. Story 20. We happened to be right on top of the scene when a carjacking with a gun call went out. I saw the car fishtailing in the snow half a block away. We started to chase and the driver bailed immediately in the driveway of an apartment. I chased him up a hill while my partner ran around the building to cut him off. Just as I crested the hill, a shot rang out. He fired blindly behind him, the old "to whom it may concern" shot. We chased him through a church parking lot where the bingo game was just letting out, so no return fire. Caught him in a backyard behind the church. The department gave us nice plaques and cake.